As promised, I'm going to start one by one tackling these lies that we've been told about abortion, and that sometimes even in the church we start believing them because we hear them over and over and over. So in between other sorts of videos, I'm going to take these one by one. I call them myths. They are abortion myths, and just start breaking them down so that when someone throws one of these arguments in your direction, you'll be equipped to say, wait a minute, that doesn't hold water, and let me tell you why, okay? Because we need to be ready for these questions and ready for these issues if we are going to ever help people to see light and see truth and come to the defense of the defenseless. So the first one that I want to look at, I actually mentioned in the last video, and it's this. Okay, here's how the lie goes. An unplanned child who's allowed to live will be neglected, unloved, or otherwise mistreated. In other words, when you begin to defend life and the sanctity of life, something that you'll hear is, whoa, wait a minute, we cannot make abortion illegal, because then what you're doing is you're forcing these kids to be born to someone who didn't want them, and they'll end up being neglected and malnourished and maybe even beaten on a daily basis or what have you. I don't mean to make light of it, but the argument is just inane, and I'm going to explain why. Basically, what we're saying with that argument is that if there is even a remote chance that a child might not be raised correctly or might not be loved as he or she would be, it's better for that child to be murdered. Think about it. Now, that's not a stretch. That's not a leap. That is actually what we're saying, is that it's better for a child to never have a chance to live than run the risk of not being raised 100% correctly, as though any of us have ever raised our kid completely right. Okay, another implication that we're making with that argument is that women who find themselves with an unplanned pregnancy, with an oops baby on the way, are unfit to be mothers. They're unloving, they're uncaring, they are capable of abuse, they are capable of mistreating a child. On the flip side, we're also saying that women who are capable of being mothers and loving their kids and raising them correctly don't ever find themselves in situations where they're pregnant and didn't mean to be. They always get pregnant when they're good and ready. Now, we know that neither of those things are true. First of all, women of every sort under the sun have found themselves with an oops baby on the way, correct? And by the same token, women who are lacking in education or living in circumstances where their finances are in bad shape, women who come from broken homes or who have just no status in society, how unfair to assume that her maternal instincts could never spark into being and enable her to take care of a child, okay? Now, before we go any further, let me say that I'm not discounting adoption. It's absolutely wonderful to give a child a chance at life when you know you can't give him or her the life that they need to give that child a chance with a different family is incredible, it's noble, it's wonderful, okay? So please don't think I'm discounting adoption. I'm just tackling something that I know to be true because I've actually been through it myself. When I was 19, I was pregnant, and okay, 19 doesn't sound that young, but emotionally, socially, oh my gosh, I was so behind. I had a long way to even catch up with most 19-year-olds. Anyway, financially, I was in a terrible situation. I was working part-time at what we used to call a dime store. Like, you never hear that expression, but that's where I worked. For all intents and purposes, I was on my own. I was single without the father in the picture. I just was not in a good place. I understand now how crucial it is for a mom to connect emotionally with her unborn child, and I just didn't do a good job of that because I was so scared. I was so terrified of the whole situation. Finally, of course, I went into labor and my son was born on Thanksgiving Day, almost 37 years ago. And even back then in the Stone Ages, when a child was first born, they would take the baby and they would put it on the mama's belly, like sideways. And so they did that with my son Josh. And I had heard that babies couldn't really focus real well for a little while. But they put him across my belly like this, and he turned his little head and he looked right at me. I mean, he absolutely focused. We were eye to eye. He looked at me, and that was it. I was wrecked. I was in love. I was head over heels. I would have died 1,000 deaths for that kid right there, right then. That was it. Any doubts, any hesitations were just gone. Now, yes, I still had a lot of learning to do. I needed help. I needed advice. I didn't do it very well, I'm sure. But my son even kind of, we kind of grew up together because I was so young in so many ways. And so what happened was, when the time came, when the moment came, and I met my son, and I tell you, I was so speechless. All I could say was, "Hello, baby." That's all I could say to him in those first few moments. Now I've lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, but okay. So what happened is the maternal instinct that God had put in me as a female kicked in. It went, whoop, here we go. Let's turn this on because this young girl needs this. And so that maternal instinct kicked in. And my son and I, we did okay. You know it? We did okay. And I mean, he survived. I survived. He has an incredible wife now. His literally his high school sweetheart, and 3 amazing kids and another one on the way. There were plenty of people who would have looked at me in the beginning, then when I first found out that I was going to have a baby in 9 months, who would have looked at me and said, "Oh, yeah, I can totally understand why she might want to abort that child." Okay. But I'm here to say that when we are victorious and we get this, we get abortion back to the place where it needs to be, which is illegal. Yes, there are going to be more young women who cannot resort to abortion and are put into a situation more like what I faced. And you know what? Over and over and over again, you know what's going to happen? Their maternal instinct is going to kick in. Now, if they don't decide on the adoption route, which is great, their instincts will kick in. They will make it. Their children will make it. Their moms or sisters or grandmothers or sometimes even the father will step in there and they'll help. How unfair to say that those children would be better off dead, and that those young moms would be better off having to carry the weight of having slaughtered their children. How terrible, how unfair. The murder of children is never an option. You know, something that happens all the time, every day, all over the U.S., is that a woman finds herself with an oops baby on the way, and she takes a deep breath and she pulls herself up by her bootstraps and she makes it work, and she loves that child with her whole life, and she raises a beautiful kid. That happens all the time. Here's what we have no business saying: that the children who are born to especially young women or women with little education or low-income jobs run a higher risk of being victimized, and therefore we must murder them. We have no business saying that. It is reprehensible. This abortion myth falls apart because, number one, The murder of children is never a practical option, even when there's a chance of a neglect or abuse. And number two, because the vast majority of the time, it's not even what happens. So I hope that this has helped. I hope that the next time that you hear or see this particular argument thrown your way, that you'll be able to address it instead of backing away from it. Be a voice for those who have no voice. Okay? All right, until next time, please subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.